Morning, friends. Today we are going to be reading lesson 2 of our new nation, all about the American Revolution. And today our lesson is about the taxing time and the Boston Tea Party. For a long time, almost everyone who lived in America was proud to be a British citizen, ruled by the King of Great Britain. But then things began to change. The king and the British government, or Parliament, had spent a lot of money helping to set up and protect the colonies. To help pay for these expenses, Parliament decided to make the colonies in America pay taxes to Great Britain. Taxes are extra money people pay when they buy certain things. For example, today, we may pay taxes when we buy clothes at a department store, food in a restaurant, or gasoline for the car. They must give the extra money or taxes to the government. The government uses the taxes to help pay for things that everybody needs, like schools, public transportation, roads, water, and garbage service, police and fire protection, and other public services. So what are taxes and what are they used for? Taxes are extra money you pay when you go to the store, go to buy something, pay for gas in your car, and then that money goes towards things that everybody needs and uses. So for example, if a road has big holes in it and needs to be fixed, they'll use money from people's taxes to fix the roads. The problem was that colonists were not allowed to vote or make decisions about taxes. The king and his parliament could tax anything. The colonists thought that it was unfair that they had to pay taxes for stamps, sugar, and other things without being able to have a say in any of the decisions. Do you think it's fair that Parliament could decide what they wanted to tax and what kind of money they would collect, and the people just had to keep paying without any say? I don't think that's really fair. Over time, the colonists were more and more upset about the taxes. The tempers in the colonies flared. That means they're really angry. Even more when the Tea Act passed in 1773. Colonists would now have to pay taxes on their favorite drink. They refused to pay the taxes and drink any more tea from England. In Massachusetts, the colonists decided to do something to show how upset they were. Imagine if your favorite drink or your favorite food that you had every single day always had a big tax on it, like you had to pay extra money for it. I think I'd be pretty mad. The colonists knew that a ship filled with British tea would be coming to the Boston port. One cold December night, a group of colonists called the Sons of Liberty decided to have a special kind of tea party. They dressed like Native Americans, went down to the ships, and threw 342 chests or big boxes of tea into the Boston harbor. The tea was ruined and the British lost their tea and their money. So if you look in this picture up here, you can see that they're throwing boxes into the water. Now, how do you think the British were feeling? The British were probably very mad that their expensive tea was being thrown in the water and completely ruined. They can't sell this tea anymore. It's ruined. The Sons of Liberty were probably feeling pretty excited that they were able to sneak onto the ships and throw the tea in the water. It's not really a nice thing to do, but they were really mad about the taxes, and that's why they decided to do that. King George was furious, that means really angry, and closed all the Boston ports so no supplies, food, or goods could enter. The king said they would remain closed until the colonists paid for the tea. The colonists started running out of food and were struggling, but they refused to pay the king. The people of Boston began to talk of war against Great Britain and its king, but other colonists warned them not to act so quickly. Wait a bit, they suggested. It is never a good idea to fight back without cooling off a bit first. So it sounds like some of the people in the colonies really were angry and did not like the king and wanted to fight, but some of them thought that they needed to calm down a little bit. The 13 colonies decided that they needed a plan and had a big meeting. They called this meeting the Continental Congress. Some colonies wanted to stay loyal to the king. They were called loyalists. Some colonies wanted to rule themselves. They were called patriots. I wonder why they disagreed. I guess some people were really wanting to have their own independent colony, and some people probably liked that the king protected them, and maybe that's why they disagreed on whether or not they liked the king. Members of the Continental Congress included George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, and Thomas Jefferson. They decided to write a letter to the king to try to work out their disagreements in a peaceful way. They wanted the king to let them vote for laws, or else they would stop all trade to England. They had to wait for the king's response and hope it would be one that did not start a war. So now we have some discussion questions after reading our second part of A New Nation, American Independence. The first question is about taxes and what they're used for. Taxes were a really important part of this story because the whole reason the colonists got angry at the king was because of taxes. It was because of the money and the fact that the colonists didn't have a say in how they felt about the taxes. What is a representative? A representative in this story is someone that is sent on behalf of a bigger group of people to go and represent those people. So for example, in a classroom like 1A, for example, you might say, let's pick one student to go talk to Miss Lessard about why we deserve extra recess time. And maybe you talk together and you pick one student to be the one to go talk to Miss Lessard. That would be the class's representative. Why did the king and the British Parliament decide to tax the British colonies in America? The reason why there were taxes was because the king and British Parliament needed more money. They lost a lot of money when they were supporting the colonies. And if they wanted to have all of the tea and all of the protection and all of the soldiers and all of the new stuff, they needed to tax the colonists. How did the British colonists feel about being taxed? Well, we saw in our story today that some of the colonists were okay with it, but some of them were really mad, and they didn't like that they were just being taxed on everything that they used. Did the Boston Tea Party solve the problem of tea being taxed? Well, the Boston Tea Party was when they threw all of the tea into the ocean. And instead of stopping the taxes, the British just stopped sending food and tea to the colonies. So it kind of made it the situation a little bit worse, but the colonists felt like they were really standing their ground and saying, we are not okay with these taxes. What was the colonists' next plan for solving the problem with the British king? Well, in today's story, we read how some representatives wrote a letter to the king, and they explained some of the things that they wanted, and they had to kind of wait to see what the king was going to say. And it could be that the king would agree with them and work with them, and they could solve the problem. But if the king was still angry and didn't want to work things out with the colonists, then they were probably going to have to start a war, which is not good. So the next time we read, we're going to do lesson 3 called The Shot Heard Round the World. And this story will be about what happens next with the king and the colonists. So make sure you check out lesson 3 next week.